Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the R&D Podcast. I am your host, Rachel.
I'm Delia.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the people who don't want to have kids, and then maybe they get involved with someone who plays along, but then changes their mind down the road.
I've seen this before. Yep.
Yeah,
let's get into this one. I think that, you get to a certain age where you're like, I do not want to have any more children, or you want to have children. And that could be a deal breaker, by the way, whether you want kids or you don't want kids, however it is, right? And so I think that you have to get to the truth as fast as you can. I mean, are you open to the idea? Are you not open to the idea? I know that, a long time ago, I was talking to someone, and you know what? He went and then just did the whole snip and cut, because he said, I'd never want to be a father, and he just knew that about himself. So, I think that if
he had not had children, but he went and did that.
Yep. He just knew that he never wanted to be a dad. And so he said, you know what, this way I just limit any possibility that I could be a father. And oftentimes people have their own ideologies behind why the fact that they don't want to be fathers or mothers, by the way. And I did see a video of a woman that chose not to have children. And she was crying on the video, saying that
blonde lady?
Yes, saying how she regretted it so much that the train had already left the station basically, and there's no way that she was going to go back to trying to have or trying to conceive. And it was a sad video in my opinion. I also know someone indirectly in my circle that she was like, we have dogs, I don't want children, like our dogs are our kids. Yes. And guess what, she's in therapy. She's going through therapy right now because she wanted, she feels like the train left the station also. And I think she might be like, early 40s, but the likelihood of her conceiving is probably unlikely.
Or conceiving a healthy child. There's so many people over the age of 35 that think, well, Jennifer Lopez and all these people still have kids in their 50s. They don't understand that they have such access to medical things, right? Resources that can help ensure the chances that your child's going to be born healthy. But once you pass 35, the chances go way down, like hugely down. Right. That you're gonna, you can get pregnant, but is the kid gonna be normal? And one of the things that I keep seeing, that especially in the circles where the woman is like going after the whales, as we talk about the more successful men. Many of these guys, for example, they've already been married. They already had their kids. They're in their late, mid to late 50s, early 40s. 60s or whatever. 50s, and they're just like, oh, I've been there. I done that. I do want a beautiful woman on my arm to go travel with and experience life with, but I'm not going to do that whole marriage and kids thing again. Then the woman, because I've had friends that have said, I know that I wanted kids, I want to get married, but it's okay because I really love him. I really do enjoy company with him. And then as the relationship progresses, something shifts in the woman, and she's like, but if you love me, you'd marry me. If you love me, you'd have kids with me. And then there's this whole push-pull dynamic, right, in the relationship, when the guy was pretty clear in the beginning. So I think those are the challenges, because I think as women, there's just like this natural calling to want to have children. But there's also women who say they've never had the sense. Desire. But I think what happens is when you're capable of doing it, you're like, it's fine. If I change my mind, I'll change my mind. But when you lose the option entirely, because like you said, the train left the station, I could see how there'd be this focus on what you cannot ever have.
Right, and I think that that's the most difficult part. I think that when you endure loss as you're trying to conceive, because that happens a lot, and you start to kind of face reality that you may not be able to have children. I think there's nothing worse than maybe your whole life you took care of yourself to not get pregnant, and all of a sudden you come to a crossroads in your life where you're like, okay, I'm ready now. And sometimes we are challenged, God challenges us to say, you know what, now I don't want to have you conceive as fast, because you know what, you took pills for so long. And that's not to say that that's your karma, by no means. I'm just saying sometimes I think that it's a lot of the environment that we're in, the things that we consume, the things that we're around, the air, everything. And I think that makes it really difficult. Not to mention, being Latina, they have this whole thing where your matriz, which is like, if you talk to anybody that is in a doctor, they would think I'm bad crazy, like I'm really crazy. But what they do is they massage your uterus, basically, is what they say is that the uterus has fallen. And I've seen this time and time again, by the way. They're sobadores.
Yeah.
And they actually lift the uterus, which is
The
te
wall.
levantan la matriz. Once they do that, you're able to conceive a lot faster. And I think there's nothing worse than, facing the music that, the likelihood of you becoming a parent is very unlikely. And I think that there's nothing worse than knowing that you can't have something that you really desire or want.
I think that's what it boils down to is we're living in a time where women in their late 20s are being somehow convinced that they're so young. I'm too young. Like, I'm still so young. And it's like, what? No, like there is a clock. It really is ticking. And if you're taking birth control, freaking forget it. There was a doctor who came on who basically said that he's from Europe or something, and he goes, I don't know why the doctors in the United States aren't telling women when you go on birth control, it's only meant to be for 3 years, 5 years. There's a limit, and after that, you're doing irreparable damage to your opportunities to conceive.
Wow.
And so there's age, there's hormones, there's environment, and then there's what we're actually deliberately putting into our body to not conceive. And so I think that this is a little bit of a challenging topic, because we're both mothers. We've already been there and done that. But in coming into this age now where we're surrounded by women here and there that we realize chose their career, chose the good times, chose their freedom, chose all these other things that you hear that they're choosing. And now they're rounding the corner because maybe the train left the station, maybe it's about to, they notice it, and they're going, oh my goodness, like,
what does this mean?
I am alone now. Maybe the guy that you thought you were on the bandwagon with this whole idea is gone, and now you're sitting there going, no one's coming. Like this lady, I think it was the same one, right? Who said that she had called Uber when she thought she was having a heart attack or something. And she had to walk herself to the curb and sit there and wait for an Uber, and it got her thinking, I'm not even going to have children who can come and like take care of me. And
even if you have children, that's not going to guarantee you that they're going to take you anyway. But I think the idea of you having offsprings and that eventually, God willing, they will care for you, I think that's a beautiful feeling. I just think that oftentimes, we don't see a future, what we're going to need or lack, or what doesn't matter or what does matter. I will say that for me, specifically for me, I always wanted to be a mother. Like if I was allowed the ability to have children, I was going to have children, and I was blessed with 2 beautiful little girls. And so, I never want to implement my thought processes on anybody, especially people that don't have kids, for me to be like, you need to have kids. Like, who am I to say that, right? Because I'm not going to sit there and go change diapers or buy the diapers or like buy formula and raise them.
Because not easy.
And it's challenging, raising children is a very, very big challenge. But I do believe that, if you meet somebody and that, that is going to be a deal breaker for you, I think it would be really silly for you to try to think that you're going to change someone's mind. If this person's telling you, I absolutely do not want children or absolutely don't want any more children, then it would be really silly for you to invest time into something that isn't going to give you what you need or want.
Doesn't it kind of seem like the scenario is, he says that now, but once he falls in love with me and we get closer, he's going to change. It's almost like the other woman, if you're like that side girl
and sometimes
and you're having an affair with the married man and you think, he loves me, he's going to leave his wife. In like 90% of the cases, right, he doesn't. There are the rare cases where he does, just like there's the rare cases where the man maybe does decide, you know what, I really love her and I care for her and I want her to be happy, I'm going to give her a child.
Right.
So it can happen.
It can happen.
But I think that being mindful of the fact that this person that you're involved with has really made it clear that they have a vision for their life and it does not include children, and you may love them, and to sit there and go, but what's your truth? Is your truth that you always saw yourself as a mother, that you always imagined your grandkids would be coming over one day and like filling your house, like whatever that vision is. I don't know that I could give that vision up just for a guy that's really great in the moment. Like I think that's so tough to do.
I agree with you. I know someone particularly that actually had I think a few kids, and then he went and he didn't want to have any more children, so he went and snipped it, and then met a woman that then wanted to be his wife, and he reversed it, because there's also ways to reverse it. And I think depending on who it is and how long, I think after 7 years the chances go down, if you've had if you've been snipped over 7 years, to reverse it and have the ability to conceive or to have children. And so according to the doctor, he was right at that cusp. And so thankfully they were able to reverse it. And I think within 3 months she was pregnant. So I think that that's a great, it's a great thing. Yeah. But I definitely think that, when it comes to, wanting something and not being able to have it, I think that makes it so difficult.
I think especially in that specific story, like that cannot be easy if you're wife number one, and
oh my gosh, yes,
and you guys have a plan. Yeah, you have this plan of like, we just talked about empty nesting in the previous episode, and it's like you have this idea of like, all right, now we're going to go into the next phase of our life, and that includes, honey, snip it so we can be kind of free, free birdies, love birds, and make this whole plan. And then it's like, yeah, he did all that so he could fly the coop himself,
and then reverse it,
and then her having to witness the couple
of children that he then had. Yeah. And I think that could be a very, very hard, pill to swallow, as they say, because I think that, a lot of the time you think like this is like a decision that you're making that is like you can't really go back and change, by the way. It's just something that you decided and then you're moving forward and that's it. And so I think it's really important to understand that, sometimes you're going to meet people in your life that seems like so perfect, but then there's those deal breakers that you're like, okay, so he's perfect in all these areas, but that's a big deal for me. I know someone specifically that in her 20s, she had like a cancer, and so like uterus cancer of some sort. So they had to remove her uterus. So while she was young enough, they actually extracted however many egg cells.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but I guess the doctor had said that the likelihood of the eggs, staying alive and healthy, is very unlikely if they weren't fertilized. So she went ahead and had them fertilized with the ex-boyfriend, kind of like the whole Sofia Vergara thing that had happened, by the way.
Yeah.
Very similar to that story. And so then she realizes that, she wants to have a baby no matter what, because essentially that would be just her baby with this particular person.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, she tried implantation, or she tried to do the in vitro with a surrogate, and it just didn't work. And they just didn't implant. And so I know that she's now currently possibly married, and or she is married, and I think that the man she decided to marry, or the man that she married, had an understanding that the likelihood of her becoming a mother is very unlikely, and she's probably never going to be, become a mother. And so I think for either or party, that's, if you ever desire to be a mother and that's been taken away because you had, cancer, I think that's got to be very difficult.
Yeah, I think that's because that's like beyond your choice, right? I think if you are a woman and you're watching this, no matter your age, if there is a desire to have a child and you're still capable to do it, but your partner, that's not the way that they want to live their life. Because I love, it's my favorite job. It was my favorite role in life, and I've done a lot of amazing things in my life, and it's hands down my favorite role. It's not the easiest. It wasn't as smooth. There's been hardships, like there's been so many things, but it's absolutely the biggest, greatest fruit of my life that I've ever had has been my children. And granted, like maybe when my youngest gets married and moves on, then it's like, all right, like who knows what the next thing is going to be. But in the meantime, it's been an amazing journey. And I can say to you, any woman watching this who's on the fence of like, well, I think I might want kids, but then I don't know. If there's even a 10% chance that you want them, I say go. I've yet to meet a woman who just regretted having kids. I mean, it's hard. They might have regretted the guy that they chose to have kids with, and they might regret certain things along the journey, but having your children, I don't think you'll regret it. I think it's one of those things that no matter how hard it is, I don't think you actually end up regretting it.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say I regret having my children. I think if anything, it's quite the opposite. It's like the best thing that happened was, that I had my kids, or, you see all these failed marriages, and it's like the one thing that came out of this marriage that was great was my kids. And it's always, it's like 100% of the time, that's what I've heard. Now, there are a unique set of circumstances when it comes to certain people that have children. There are a lot of people that, that don't really fit this narrative or criteria or this what we're talking about, like the moms that decide to go out and party and do drugs and are drug addicts. I think that they chose that life for themselves. I think that would be the only exception, but other than that, I think for the most part, no one ever goes back and says, I wish I would undo this, or I wouldn't have had my children. But I definitely think, like you're saying, Rachel, like if this is something that you really, really want, and this is something that you desire, I think it's just a matter of figuring out, can this person be a good provider, a good father, looking at this person, and not just because I think when sometimes, you're in certain moments that you're just like, oh yeah, like it'd be great. And then you don't realize, like, also though, there's a lot of responsibilities that come with having children. You know, like daycare is not cheap, and who's going to take care of the kids? Are you going to work? Are you a stay-at-home mom? You know, is he going to hold it down? Are you going to hold it down? Because sometimes we did an episode one of the times where it's like the stay-at-home dads.
Oh yeah.
So are you going to be the one at work, and then he's going to be a stay-at-home dad? So there's a lot of things that also come, you know, within this conversation. It's not just like, oh, are we going to have kids? It's like, okay, so what is the game plan? You know, because I think in life that is the most important thing, is like the game plan. What are we doing? And
I'm going to add this. So I saw a video, you know, because social media, and we do this podcast and we're researching, and like there was a woman who was like, ladies, I'm a 38-year-old woman. She's like, dating is horrendous.
Right.
She's like, I want to be a mom. I make good money. Are there any other of you out there? Like, let's get a compound. Like let's buy a fourplex. Like, let's do it. Like, let's figure out how to, like, in other words, get pregnant, raise our children together, take turns babysitting, providing, like creating almost like a compound for women that are, you know, they're self-reliant.
Right.
They don't want to wait until they find Prince Charming, and they're going, hey, the clock's ticking, let's go, let's get strategic. And the comment section was like raising hands everywhere. Women were like, oh my God, I've always wanted to be a mom, and I'm getting really concerned because I haven't really met anybody, or the guy I was with me for 8 years and he never proposed and nothing ever came of it, and like time wasters.
Yeah.
And so many women are being told, like, put your career first, or don't settle, make sure you deserve better, and all this kind of stuff.
Things, yeah.
But then at the end of the day, like, the sands of time are going through the glass here.
Things, yeah.
And so these women are like taking massive action towards, you know what, I absolutely want to be a mom, and like the guy is optional at this point. So I think that's interesting too.
I think that's interesting, but I do think that it's unfortunate, and I definitely can say that, you know, I've been mom and dad for a very long time, and I think that, you know, being raising children in a one-parent household is very challenging, by the way, and so you have to be very methodical on who you choose to parent, that, you know, who the other half is going to be. I saw a study that said to this morning, as a matter of fact, that in the 1940s, 96% of all families had a father and a mother in it. That is because obviously divorce was very taboo, and it was, you know, once you got married, it was till death did you part.
Yes.
And so I think it wasn't until later that, you know, divorce became the norm. You know, I know someone particularly that, you know, actually went to a sperm bank, you know, got inseminated, had a child on her own. She said, you know what, at the end of the day, I'm a career woman. I have, you know, the means to raise a child. And she went through the pregnancy by herself. For me, I have to tell you that, you know, you have to be very strategic on the game plan, because I think that, you know, it's really challenging when it's a one-parent household. I got to tell you, there's so many challenges that you're going to, you know, confront. You're going to confront a lot of challenges. You know, when they're teenagers, you know, they get a certain way, and I think that they know how they need to be with mom, as they know how they need to be with dad, or who they're going to ask for permission. Yeah. Like, should I ask mom or should I ask dad? Depending on who's the strictest, they know what they got to do and how they got to move. But when it's your mom and dad, that's really difficult. And
and that's why too, you got to consider when you're in a marriage, and you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm married to him, but I don't know if I want to have kids with him, or I'm dating him, but he has these little things. I don't know if I see a future with him, but I've been with him for 4 years, or whatever it may be. You got to remember, there is no perfect thing.
Right.
And
or perfect timing.
You know, or perfect timing. And when you're in a marriage, your pregnancy might be horrendous. He might be verbally abusive. He might neglect you. He might not know what to do because you're craving this, you're emotional. Not all men know how to handle their pregnant wife. And not to excuse their behavior, by the way, but I'm just saying, like, whether this woman is doing it on her own, and that's really sad, because you have this idea of what it should have been or could have been versus the reality of what it is, right? Yeah. But then there's women that they end up with a guy, and he seems really great, and they got married, and she gets pregnant, and it's just a nightmare. And so there's no avoiding the challenges. What the challenges are is different for everybody. So it's not easy having children. It's not easy birthing them. It's not easy raising them. But I always say it's absolutely worth it. And even if you're with someone that you can trust to provide, if that's all he's good at is providing, you know, consider it. Like, that's what I would say. And maybe he's he doesn't make a lot of money, but he's so good to you, and you just know he'd be a great father to a daughter if you had one. You know, some guys you go, oh God, I don't know if he'd be a good girl dad, but he'd be a great like boy dad. You know, maybe he's really handy with the, handy or whatever. Like, there's so many things to consider, and I think we overthink it, and I think we create these big grand illusions of what our partner should be before we have the guts to get married or before we have the guts to have children with them.
So true.
When the truth is, we're all just freaking figuring it out. Like, everyone's figuring it out.
You know, and for me, I always say, like, for whatever reason, it's like my thing, right? I say, you know, I for some reason, I was the one that was chosen to guide you in this lifetime, right? So with, like, my children, I say, you know, I know that I'm your mother, but I'm also, like, a mentor. I'm also here to help you. You know, when you're out of line, I got to help you get back on track. We're not always going to get it right, because at the end of the day, we're trying to figure it out too. You know, we're living in this lifetime also, and you might have maybe your finances in place, or you might have your career in place, but there's always something that, you know, you're directing the boat in the direction that you want it to go, and sometimes, you know, you're going to veer off a little bit. And so I think it's important that you understand that you're never going to get it 100% correct. But if this is something that you really want, I think that you need to go out and get it and seek it and search for it, and you shouldn't, you know, just say, well, I'm never going to be a parent because I haven't met the right person or what have you. I just think, like, if it feels right, you just got to go with the go, and then be very intentional why you want to be a mother, or who it is, or true. You know what I mean? I think it's like setting the intention of what it is that you want. I definitely think that, you know, that you make that's a life-changing decision, though, whoever you choose to be the other parent. That is going to be a life-changing decision. It doesn't matter. It's going to be life-changing. So you have to be, you know,
but I will
intentional
say this,
and methodical.
The
on that
risk
end.
of doing 10 years with a guy that maybe it doesn't work out is far less impactful, I think, than what I have witnessed. A dining table at a restaurant full of women over a certain age that never got married, never had kids, because they put their career first, because so and so, he was great, but he didn't make enough money, or he made money, but he was kind of a jerk, or but you know what I mean? And like, these guys didn't fit the mold of whatever was living in their head. And then time went past, and yes, they're successful, yes, they're beautiful, yes, they're smart and capable, but they are sitting there saying, oh my gosh, not only did I never get married, like, I don't have kids. And I'm like, did you want kids? And unanimously, they all went like this. It's almost like rude to even ask that, but I joke around saying, do I have autism? Because I ask all these like blunt questions. But I will say I was genuinely curious, and it just kind of seems like women are approaching a time where they're saying, I don't even want to acknowledge the fact that I wanted them, because then that's facing the harsh reality that I'm never going to have one. Adoptions, obviously, options and things like that, but I have personally sat in a room because I'm a career woman with other career women that they are empty. They feel an emptiness. So if you're of an age that you can still bear children, and it's even a percentage point in you of like, gosh, like, maybe I do want kids, go, please, go do it. Like, go have your children.
I mean, I think that, I do think, though, that you should go have your children, but then also, you know, look at who that person's going to be, because I'll tell you, graduation, you know, if they're going to have any big parties, if they're going to, you know, there's so many like timelines and life events that happen that you're going to be facing this person, so you got to make sure that you kind of get along with them, you know, and you're not just going to have a child just to have a child, you know, and I do think that the statistics that I saw, the stats that I saw this morning of, you know, how everything has changed now. I think that, you know, two parents in a household these days, it's gone down to something like 60% of marriages fail, right? So only like 40% are actually living with mom and dad. And then I question also that 40%, let's just say, how many of them are actually, you know, coming from a broken home? And you know what I mean? Because a lot of the time, you know, you're living in a broken home, or you come from one, or do you live in one? And so I think it's just a matter of just figuring out who, when you date, that if the person doesn't want to have children, you cannot change their mind. It's gonna, the likelihood is probably very unlikely. And if they should have a child with you, they're gonna feel trapped. They're gonna be resentful towards you because they didn't want that, and all of a sudden, you know, you got pregnant, and there could be resentment there.
But also, if you are someone that does not want children, and he does, have the maturity to say, go have your kids. I personally had to do that with someone that I actually thought I could walk down the aisle with, and I literally, when I heard that in him, I went, ooh, because I know I'm done. So I just was like, go do your thing. Go, please go do that. Like, please go do that. You know what I mean? Because I have no regrets, and I was a teen mom and all this kind of stuff, and I just think, like I said, it's a tough journey. It's twists and turns and ups and downs.
Gosh, it is.
But there's no regrets whatsoever. So think it through, and I think we have to be very authentic and just be so honest with yourself about this one life that you have and what you want to experience.
I agree.
And if parenting is one of those experiences,
go get it.
Go get it.
Yep. Amen. Cheers.